Hello, Julia Campbell here with a very time-sensitive pre-roll. I have opened the doors to my brand new course for nonprofits, the Digital Fundraising Formula. It's a step-by-step blueprint to launching wildly successful online fundraising campaigns and a formula that you can use over and over again. And the doors are only open until September 20th. Class starts September 20th. So go to digitalfundraisingformula.com, and take a look, sign up, register. And I really hope to see you on the inside. All right, let's get to the episode. Hello, and welcome to Nonprofit Nation. I'm your host, Julia Campbell, and I'm going to sit down with nonprofit industry experts, fundraisers, marketers, and everyone in between to get real and discuss what it takes to build that movement that you've been dreaming of. I created the Nonprofit Nation podcast to share practical wisdom and strategies to help you confidently find your voice, definitively grow your audience, and effectively build your movement. If you're a nonprofit newbie or an experienced professional who's looking to get more visibility, reach more people, and create even more impact, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. All right, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Nonprofit Nation. I am thrilled that you're here. I am your host, Julia Campbell, and today we have a very special guest, Suhailah Waheed. She is the Managing Director and Fundraiser for Giving Geeks, LLC. Suhailah is a community-centered fundraiser and organizer based out of Austin, Texas. She's originally from the multifaceted cultural hotspot of the American South, Durham, North Carolina, where I have never been, sadly. She's also a published poet, and she focuses her work on highlighting issues that affect the quality of life for women, children, minority, and Muslim communities. Her fundraising adventure blossomed in her youth when she began fundraising for her school and local masjid. From there, she was drawn to illuminating experiences and possibilities through storytelling and fundraising, which is what we're going to talk about today. At Giving Geeks, she creates and enhances strategy, operational and developmental processes, and provides support in strategic fundraising opportunities. She's also, in her free time, which is probably none, an executive board member of AFP Greater Austin. She's also the 2020 National AFP Emerging Leader of Impact. So welcome, Suhailah. I'm happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. I am more than excited to be here with you, like the legend, Julia Campbell.
Oh, no. You know what I love? I took this out of your bio. I think it was on your website when you wrote, I see myself, the multi-passionate queen, working on a unique startup while leading a national organization through a successful annual fundraising campaign with a mission to take a significant burden off women and the BIPOC community. And I thought, we're going to be best friends. That is amazing. Because anyone that sees himself as a queen is amazing.
Oh, yeah. All the time. Like
absolutely.
Friday, Saturdays and Sundays, I might turn into a sloth somewhere. You might not see me for a little while, but like Monday through Friday, I got you.
You have your crown on. Yeah. Well, let's start with your journey. Let's start with sort of how you got involved with nonprofit work and fundraising.
Yeah, I'm down. So I got involved in fundraising very early on. I was fundraising probably since I was about 14 years old, literally supporting banquets and small fish fries and hosting events through fundraising with my school and my masjid, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. At the time, I was just kind of doing that as extracurricular, like just what someone asked me to do and so I'm running for it, And then as time went on, I started school, and honestly, when I was probably like one of the most lost kids in college. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I was like, I don't know, somebody told me to be here. So I'm just like, here.
Well, that's what happens. You go to school right after high school. Yeah. And yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah. And I knew I wanted to do something in the social sector, but I just wasn't really sure what. And so after college, I was like, all right, I think I'm going to do social impact work. And that journey started a little bit earlier before I graduated college, but I really cemented down into knowing that I was a good fundraiser. And so after a few conversations and some research, I said, I think we're going to just go into development. And that was my intention. I started interning with some organizations and really just kind of was the fundraising runaround girl. And after that, I was like, well, I really want to learn more about how organizations come to be and how it looks to be at the center of an organization outside of fundraising. And so I took an operations role at an organization out here in Texas and Impact Austin. And that organization, I would say, really helped me grow and define exactly what it is that I love to do, having the opportunity to really identify what skills I knew I did well. And, I kind of was able to merge the fact that I love tech, I love the tech world, and I love fundraising. And so with that, I started, I was still fundraising the entire time, just like taking up this project, and just kind of doing fundraising here and there. From there, I was like, listen, I'm just going to do digital fundraising and I'm going to focus on individual giving. And so from there, I decided to kind of step off on my own and work with the organizations that were pushing forward into missions that I knew were important to me and that could use my, support and advice. And so that's really how Giving Geeks was born.
I love the name Giving Geeks.
Thank you. Thank you. Being asked to, work in this space or that space. And I was like, listen, let me just wrap up what I do and offer it to anyone who is in need of digital fundraising support. And so we've been here rolling and rocking.
That's amazing. So you wrote also on your website, your mission is backing your community in the most efficient way that you can through access to sustainable funding.
Right.
And is that a huge piece of what Giving Geeks does?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that, a part of my experience and struggle growing up was very little access to funding for college, for basic needs, everything. And so I know that at the end of the day, if a lot of our community members are to even be able to get into a space where we can compete or we can come to a place where we can offer the best skill sets that we have, we need the funding to get there. And we need it to be consistent. And I recognize that there are opportunities of giving that will create that for our community members. And so for me, whatever it is that I'm doing as a fundraiser, I want it to be something that is sustainable, not something that's just there for a short amount of time. I hate the idea of a great campaign coming into place and then, the funding kind of just floating away after a while and that support evaporating. And what I want to see is I want systems that are sustainable in place for the missions that are most deserving. Because otherwise, to me, it's a waste of my time. And I absolutely recognize that there is no better work than the work that I'm in, I feel like. And so if there's anything that I can do to make sure that the communities that I'm speaking with recognize the importance of sustainable funding, I'm all here for it. So.
That's awesome. Do you know Rhea Wong by any chance? She's a fantastic consultant, writer, podcaster.
Yes.
I received an email from her this week and the title was Fundraising as Social Justice. And it was kind of really eye-opening to me. I've always thought that. Do you feel like fundraising is a form of social justice activism?
100%.
Yeah.
120%. It's so funny because when I first began working with nonprofits, one of the things that I kept hearing is like, yeah, it's going to be great hard work, but you're not going to make any money. You might enjoy the outcome of what you do, but just be prepared for there to be a lot of heartache, for there to be a lot of unfulfilled missions, for you not to see everything through. And while some of that has taken place in trying to build a more equitable world, it has taken place. But at the end of the day, I think the people that were telling me that were not really entrenched with some of the amazing leaders that I have had the opportunity of coming into contact with that have really, truly changed the world for the better. I think that, even if, at the end of the day, the outcome is not what we may have expected, or it's not what we would have chosen to be the first outcome, I at least want to have said, we talked about it, we did something about it, and there is a price to pay. Ultimately, I think that everyone should have the opportunity to tell their story. And obviously, as a fundraiser, we occupy a really privileged space where we get to tell those stories. And as long as we can maintain integrity, we can really fight for the work that's most important and make it very clear why some of these missions need to be funded. And we can also, it's just really interesting because we can also, from that privileged space, sway where the funding is going, and for another. And so I find it extremely important to be very mindful of the stories that we are telling, how we tell them, as well as the ways in which we bring in funding that, to ultimately do the best work as, possible, without compromising the community that we say we're here for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I get very frustrated when I hear nonprofits say, well, the work we do is not political, because I think they're confusing political and partisan, know? Yes. So the work you do should not be partisan unless you are an advocacy organization set up that way. Yeah. But no matter what your mission is, there is someone out there who's trying to defund you. There is someone out there that is saying that you don't deserve funding or that your community is not worthy of resources. I mean, no matter what you do, you're going to get pushback. Hopefully not as much pushback, hopefully not so much that it makes your work hard to do. But what do you say to people that say, fundraising, nonprofit work, we should just put our heads down. It's not political. What's your response?
Probably a chuckle. That's probably
yes, me too.
And I would probably say you got the wrong one. You more than likely have the wrong industry. You have the wrong people. I am not the one to put my head down for any of that, to be honest. I mean, and again, it's just to me almost an oxymoron, because as fundraisers, we are supposed to be telling the most critical stories. We are supposed to be in this space to make it clear what the possibilities are with access to capital. And so if I'm doing my job appropriately, my eyes are on the prize. My eyes are fully aware of what is going on around me. And I am capable of doing the research necessary to provide the proof that any circumstance may be happening, even if it is through just a story. So no, I will never keep my head down, because how am I supposed to know what's going on, Mm-hmm. And then I think it's all of our due diligence to really create safe spaces for each other and create spaces where the people that we are working with and partnering with for the betterment of our entire community, we're listening to them. And so if there is at any point that someone is pointing out something that we need to be aware of as fundraisers, there should be no reason that your head is, at your desk and unaware of what's going on ever.
Mm-hmm.
Because again,
nothing happens in a vacuum.
Nothing happens in a vacuum. And that good intention is not enough. It's not
Mm-hmm.
enough to really make an impact. That good intention is not enough to really, pass the test of time and allow yourself to succeed as a fundraiser. We don't want to do any harm, but inactiveness can be very harmful. So
mm-hmm. Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think it is very hard for people, especially coming out of 2020, hard for organizations to really step out of their comfort zone and challenge the status quo, but they should have been doing that forever. So that's what I say to them. It's it shouldn't have taken a pandemic and Black Lives Matter protests to wake you up from your slumber, people. You should have been doing this work for a long time. So you say that, I know your company focuses on ethical digital fundraising, right? So can you tell us what that means and maybe give us a few tips on how we can ensure, because a lot of people listening are digital fundraisers, right, how we can ensure that we are being as ethical as possible, or at least putting processes in place?
For sure. To me, that has the most, so there's two different things that I like to focus on. And one of them is the way in which you utilize technology as well as the storytelling. Mm-hmm. So there is no digital fundraising that is not hand in hand with marketing, right? And digital marketing. But storytelling for me is a really huge part of how successful your fundraising is going to be, as well as how ethical you may be, in this space. And so what I mean by that is that, like, today, with the power of technology, in 2 clicks, you might share some of the most amazing and inspiring stories and really drive up your donations in an instant, right? But at the same time, are you considering the source of these stories? Are you considering the integrity of them? Are you considering whether it is appropriate for you to share these stories without permission for, your own organization's reasons, And so I think that there's a lot of things as it relates to storytelling that you have to consider when you're in a digital space to be ethical. And so, you want to insist on honesty and transparency in telling your stories. And so one of the first things that I say is that, create a measure of what is appropriate for you as an organization to tell certain stories, and don't be quick and hasty. I think in fundraising, of course, there's a lot of times where we do have to act quickly, but make sure that it meets the requirements that your organization has to tell certain stories. And don't just share anyone's stories without permission, without, compensating the storytellers. And so, like I said, things can move very quickly on the internet. And I think it's extremely important for organizations to set boundaries for themselves so that, they maintain their own transparency and integrity. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is just utilizing technology that does not actually harm the community that you're intending to serve.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So I think, a couple years ago, especially, during the, most previous presidency, we saw a lot of how technology kind of just took off.
Misinformation.
Yes.
Yep. Still doing it.
Yeah. There was a lot of information that was scrubbed from community members where they were unaware of what was going on. A lot of this information is used for political purposes and sometimes consumerism or whatever the case is, and capitalism, whichever road you want to go down today, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, there is still somewhat of a benefit that nonprofits receive from this information as well. And so in any space that we are in, technology-wise, we need to be as transparent as possible in how we're gathering information, and as well as letting our donors know exactly what information we're asking from them and how we're going to use it. And I want us to be on our toes the same way that other industries need to be on their toes. Not that they are, but
right.
I want us to be on our toes in the same way, because it's easy to manipulate and it's easy to be manipulated in the technology world. And so I just want to plead with organizations to be aware of the changing infrastructure of technology as it happens so quickly, and be aware of sometimes these new platforms that come out that may be really helpful and supportive of your fundraising, but also maybe almost a barrier for some other individuals and communities. I think that we have to question the ethical movements of some of the really famous platforms that we utilize and make it clear where we stand. And if we make a mistake, be transparent in that, and, talk about that mistake and talk about how we're going to move forward. So those are the two things that I really think are critical in ensuring that we are doing what's appropriate, in these spaces, is being mindful of our storytelling and the technology that we're using.
Hey there. I'm interrupting this episode to share an absolutely free training that I created that's getting nonprofits of all sizes big results. Sure, you've been spending hours on social media, but what can you actually show for it? With all this posting and Instagramming and TikToking, does it really translate into action? In my free training, I'll show you exactly how to take people from passive fans to passionate supporters, and I'll give you specific steps to create social media content that actually converts. Head on over to nonprofitsthatconvert.com. Again, that's nonprofitsthatconvert.com, and start building a thriving social media community for your nonprofit right now without a big team, lots of tech overwhelm, or getting stuck on the question, what do I do next? Let me show you how it's done. I can't wait to see what you create. I just want to ask your opinion because I really have mixed feelings about social media and social media fundraising in particular. Mm-hmm. So my mixed feelings are not, oh, Facebook doesn't give us the data. That's not important. I mean, I think that's another rabbit hole I could go down, but people know my feelings on that. I love any platform that can democratize philanthropy, make giving easy, and make giving, increase equity in giving because people can do it from their phones. They don't have to have it connected to a bank account, or they don't have to write checks, things like that. But is it ethical to continue to use Facebook? This is a question that I struggle with almost every single day. So I'd be really interested to hear your point of view and maybe what advice you would give to nonprofits out there that are kind of struggling. Is it ethical to be on Twitter? Is it ethical to be on these platforms?
So it is such a difficult question to answer because obviously I would say that it almost is like the same question of like, hey, should you still be buying from Amazon? Should you still be using Amazon?
Yep, I just bought something from Amazon today.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, literally, I was talking to my sister about something like, oh yeah, I think they have that on Amazon. She's like, I don't want to do that anymore. That man is going to space, and like I just can't take it. So I'm like, I get it, I understand. Quick answer, let's be honest, no. We are actively utilizing systems that are very oppressive in nature and as a whole. And so it is difficult to be able to clearly say, I don't think it's a problem. Yes, it is what it is, blah, 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 blah. But I really think if we just have a short answer of no, that allows us to be transparent about where we stand as individuals. And then from there, you can say, okay, here is what my organization is trying to do to make an impact in these spaces. Here is how we are trying to change the way we fundraise in these spaces or the way we actively engage. I do think that sometimes with some of these platforms, while certain aspects may be unethical, we also recognize the power of movement through these platforms.
Exactly.
In ways that, I don't know whether they intended or did not intend. It is nothing for us to get on the internet on a Tuesday on Twitter and roast Twitter at the same time. It is nothing for us to do that. And so I think that in all of these spaces, we have to remember our power. We have to remember what we do really ultimately has an impact on the bottom line for these companies. And so in those spaces, we have an opportunity to demand our needs and over as long as we need to until we get to a space where we feel like they're doing things appropriately or at least better. Because we're also in a space where like nobody's going to like leave Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's not even fathomable today. You know what I mean? And so you can keep your short answer, but you can also actively do things that are asking these organizations and these companies to maintain accountability.
Exactly.
For their actions. They're not going to go anywhere right now, but things are always changing. Like you just have to think like 20 years ago, this was not a thing. So this is not the end. This is not even the beginning, to be honest. Like this is a moment in time. And so we have to maintain accountability of our actions and ask better of each other for the next platform that's going to come out or the next space of fundraising and giving that's going to take up space. Yeah. I
love that. Use your voice and use your power because with great power comes great responsibility.
Absolutely.
I think RuPaul said that. So I completely agree. I think it's such a quandary for people in the fundraising profession, for people in marketing, because they see the damage that these platforms have caused, but it's quote unquote free. And it's really, for some nonprofits, it's one of the only ways they have, other than maybe email, they don't have the money for press releases. They don't have the money for PR. They don't have, money for TV ads. It's really one of the ways that they're getting their message out there. Yeah. So what are some of your other favorite channels to fundraise for fundraising and storytelling?
So number one, I would say I always go back to email. Like I always feel like there are things that are going to pop up. And I don't know if this is just that I happen to be of the generation that I'm a part of, but there are things that are going to pop up, different platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. There's another platform. I'm forgetting the name, but it's a gamer platform. I know you know it, Julia.
Twitch,
like there are all of these different spaces that people gather in that have the opportunity to be places of fundraising for our organizations. I mean, obviously Facebook is like kind of owning that space, but I do really feel like I am really invest in your email marketing, period. Like invest in your email fundraising.
And do that ethically too.
Do that ethically too, right? Like I feel like that space is where you really can create a culture of communication and giving that is not reliant on the changing policies and aspects of some of these other platforms. And so, of course, certain, email platforms do change their policies for sure, but, create your community in that space and make it work for you as an organization, and then incorporate some of these other social media platforms, as you move forward. But as far as like my favorite, like I said, I think email would have to be that. And then I would probably go into utilizing Facebook. Probably I would say that. And also, it's so funny too, because every time a new platform comes out, I'm like, oh my God, I got to go learn something else.
Oh, I know. Trust me. Huh?
And what's so crazy is that it's easy to get frustrated, but it's so beautiful to see some of the ways that like the younger generations are coming up into these spaces and how they are using their voice for powerful missions. And they're organizing in the most powerful, in the most amazing ways. And so anytime that, I'm looking to learn a new platform or something, I'm trying to find where the young people are, because I know that they are using all of their creative bones in their bodies to really create a unique space of communication.
I love that. I completely agree. And what I think the challenge is for a lot of people probably listening to this podcast, a lot of my clients, is that I would say I'm included in this. It's so hard for us to authentically go in these spaces and participate in an authentic way that's not sort of like, hey, everybody, here's my nonprofit, here's my marketing message,
right,
and really learn how to adapt to the tools. But what I always say is that it's really not about the tools. Like you said, there's going to be new platforms popping up probably during our conversation, definitely in the next year or so. What matters is that you are using them ethically, but also using them in a way that can best grow your organization. Yeah. So if your audience is not on Instagram or TikTok, then that's fine. Don't get stressed out about it. I know the recent change with Instagram, people are really worried about they're going to go to video, entirely to video. And I was reading the press release and I said, there's really no way they're going to go entirely to video, but the trend has been pointing towards video for years and years and years. Yeah. So a lot of these changes, shouldn't really surprise us, but oh my gosh, we're kind of at time. We could talk for a million years. I want to ask you one question about the future of digital fundraising. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? And
yeah, so it's so funny that you asked that question, because I was literally thinking about it, and I'm like, one of the things that I thought was so cool that came out of like the last year was obviously like the boom in like virtual fundraising. And so specifically the opportunity for us to be face-to-face and not actually face-to-face is really significant because it is important as it relates to accessibility. And I don't want us to forget about that, as we go back into, literally being in person again. So I see that I don't see virtual fundraising going completely away. And I see that us only, creating more opportunities of exposure and fundraising together as time goes on. but also really on-demand donations is something that I think is pretty cool. And by that, I mean like that quick giving opportunity. You know, we talked about sharing messaging earlier in two clicks. And in the same way, you might be able to donate. And that's just like, it seems like we've been donating in 2 clicks for a while, but now we're really donating in 2 clicks. Like with Venmo, with Apple Pay, the opportunity that we have now to kind of share cute little messages with each other when we send our gifts in. Like, I just think that is totally dope. And I love that, you know, Google Pay and Apple Pay and Venmo, Cash App are really getting into the space of giving and philanthropic support. You know, again, we want to make sure that we're holding all of these organizations and companies accountable for their actions as they move into this space. But at the same time, I see that only growing as time goes on. And so we really have to prepare ourselves as fundraisers to be able to make it very clear what our mission is and what our ask is, you know. So and that again has to do with us just making sure, you know, that we're very clear about where our funding is going, where our funding is coming from, and, you know, what it does in an instant. And so some of this takes time, but I do want us to prepare ourselves for quick giving in a way that we did not, you know, see coming.
Quick, frictionless giving. And the way that giving has really kind of morphed into the way consumers purchase things. I mean, because consumers are donors, so donor behavior follows consumer behavior. You're not, just like you said about Amazon, you're not going to wait to buy from Amazon and enter your credit card every time. You're going to click 2 times. I always say this. Imagine if you opened up Netflix and it had no idea who you were. Imagine if you opened up Hulu or any of the other platforms, even the New York Times. I have a subscription. We're so used to the personalization and we're so used to the ease of use and getting what we want when we want it, that we're slowly going to lose patience for cumbersome forms and things that are not mobile optimized and things that are not frictionless.
Facts. And our information, like, you know, when we go to put in, like, so let me tell you, 2 things. One, yes. I am like a junkie for like reading people's, you know, hey, let's talk about frictionless giving, 14 ways you can do this. Is that I read it all, right? As soon as I click something, they're like, here she go again. You know, is this your email? This is your name, this is your phone number, just click submit. And I'm like, all right, as long as y'all know, you know, and in a way, like, of course we know that like you're panning over that information because I want to read something, right? And so it just happens so quickly. Like Facebook is not going to forget who you are and what you need. You know, you've been telling them for however long. And so as fundraisers, we do have to adapt to that culture, you know, and just, you know, try as deeply as possible to maintain our integrity. But one thing that you said that I also want to speak on that has to do with your earlier question about whether we think these spaces are ethical or not, is I will not give up belief that we can make these spaces exactly what we want them to be. Choosing whether or not you're going to go to this grocery store or that grocery store is one decision. And we may, at the end of the day, still feel like these are corporations that do not benefit us. But as the longer we say this, the longer we keep talking to each other, the more we keep shouting from the rooftop that these things are not okay. You know, the culture that your employees are working in is unacceptable. The more people kind of float up into these spaces of, I don't want to say control, but these leadership spaces that can make certain changes. And so, for example, one of the grocery stores out here, H-E-B, like there's a Texas joke that we say like H-E-B should be running the country. And not to say that like they are perfect in any way, but the leadership that they have put in place, these people are coming from nonprofit organizations. They're coming places of community that really have a deep interest in investing in their communities directly. Like it's not just about selling you like the latest grocery, because when Texas had their storm, there were so many stores that lost. And the HEBs were like, listen, if you're in the store, just take the grocery you need. And I don't know who allowed that to happen. I don't know how that happened. Wow. But I do know that when I say that store came in full force supporting their community, they were not playing. And so that has to do with the leadership that they're putting into place and aligning themselves with a vision that is similar to what we do in our organizations. And so we can change the culture of growth in some of these spaces, but we just cannot stop talking about it. and sometimes engaging.
Oh my gosh. On that note, that's a perfect note to end on. We did not even get to talk about your book. We'll have to have you on another time. Absolutely. This was phenomenal. I want everyone to leave on that note of we can make things what we want them to be.
Yes.
And we don't have to accept the status quo. We can use our voice, we can use our power, we can use our money, we can use our values, and we can make things how we want them to be little by little. So I think that's really inspiring. So
Julia,
tell people, Suhailah, where they can find you and follow along with you.
Yeah, you guys follow me on Twitters, follow me on LinkedIn, and I am at SU Waheed, and I'll be in these spaces, just creating chaos. And the last thing that I just wanted to leave on really quickly is to say, I always remember and recognize how my ancestors changed their state of environment by active engagement. And so just know that if they can do it, my African-American ancestors that come from North Carolina, you could do it as well. So just keep pushing.
Thank you. We'll put all of the links to Giving Geeks, to Suhailah on LinkedIn, Twitter. We'll put it all in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Well, hey there. I wanted to say thank you for tuning into my show and for listening all the way to the end. If you really enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get new episodes downloaded as soon as they come out. I would love if you left me a rating or a review, because this tells other people that my podcast is worth listening to. And then me and my guests can reach even more earbuds and create even more impact. So that's pretty much it. I'll be back soon with a brand new episode. But until then, you can find me on Instagram at JuliaCampbell77. Keep changing the world, you nonprofit unicorn.